Welcome to the Blockchain Ireland Summit 2025 on-site podcast brought to you by Provenance. My name is Sebastian Gruber and I'm the co-chair of the Events and Communications Working Group at Blockchain Ireland. My guest now is Alison McMurtrie, who is the founder of iDunn Consulting and co-founder of Equisscore Emerging VC, also a member of the Association for Women in Crypto, AWIC.
Yes.
Pleasure to have you, Alison.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So what brought you to Ireland, Blockchain Ireland Summit 2025? Why now?
Why now? I came last year as well, and I've been involved with blockchain for quite a number of years now. Tokenization, real world assets, and I really discovered blockchain technologies probably almost 10 years ago. But not as a techie, but like an end user perspective. And so I really, really enjoy the discussions that Blockchain Ireland bring. The open discussions, the new ideas, and meeting, other people in the ecosystem here, because there's not, compared to some other places, there's not that much happening. So it's really, really nice to get a lot of people that are interested in the same things in the same room.
Amazing. And you've been part of the ecosystem for quite a while at this point. How have you seen it evolve?
So I was listening earlier to one of the talks, and I think it was the guy that's from Kraken, and he said, when you look forward, I can't tell you what's going to happen in the future, what's the next big thing, because in blockchain and crypto, things change all the time. And I think that when I started to become interested in it, it was very much the blockchain ledger technology. Mm-hmm. And there's so many really amazing, interesting uses for that. And I think that the crypto and the buzz and the meme coins and everything has, in my opinion, muddied the waters. Yes, it can be fun, but it's kind of, it's kind of devalued the technology that underlines it, I think. And especially when you're talking about real world cases, and especially when you're talking about decentralized finance. So I think that where I see it all coming together is around the use cases, real cases. And I want it to get to a point where, we don't talk about the internet anymore. I work with a number of startups and things, and they say, yes, I'm an AI startup. And I was like, no, AI is just part of your tech stack. It's like you have a web page. You don't tell me you have a web page. You just have a web page. It's just a given. So it's just a given you're an AI startup. I was like, but I want to get there with blockchain, because I think there's so much value that it can bring that it's not something that's going to be mentioned. And I think sometimes when you're in the ecosystem and you have an idea and you build on blockchain and you have tokens or, tokenizing real world assets or, stable coins and things like that, as soon as you start mentioning these things, people get afraid because they don't understand. But you don't understand how the internet works. Well, I don't anyway. So does it really matter as long as I can trust it? So it comes down to trust. And I think over the past, that trust was lost. And we need to, as a community, really work very hard on language communication and bringing that trust back to the consumer.
Couldn't agree more, yeah. And I think the language is a big barrier when you have those the terminology. Yep. that makes people afraid.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this then. Where do you see the real world application for the blockchain technology? What are you most excited about in terms of these use cases that you're alluding to?
I think that there was a session earlier around the future of crypto and where it's going. And, I think stable coins and digital currencies, I think a lot of people are scared of this and there's a lot of misunderstanding. But I think when you think about it as a consumer, and I had this conversation with my husband just last week, because we're so sad, that actually we're almost digital now. Right? And to be honest, as a consumer, how loans and money transfers on the bank's balance sheets, it's not my problem. Right? That's their problem. And that's because banks have not innovated for 50 years. It's the It's the same loan structures, it's the same products, just repackaged. There's been a lack of innovation, and now they're suffering. And so the whole way that we finance is starting to change with some really, really interesting companies coming up. And I think that digital currencies that are in a really secure, ledger is like the way forward. Plus, linking that to your identity. I mean, personal data security is massive, and having a digital ID that is on the blockchain that carries your information, and you release certain information to certain people and you own and control that to me, like, I'm here for that.
Yeah, I think it's such an exciting space for
Yep.
that. And there's so much quick innovation that's
Yep.
happening. I think uplifting that and making that scalable
Yep.
is probably one of the next challenges to bring that. But we've had topics about that at the conference
Yes.
as well already. So what are some of the speakers or some of the topics here today that you found particularly inspiring or thought-provoking?
I thought it was really interesting to hear Kraken's perspective. How they have tiered their platform and how they see the market going forward, and in a platform perspective. The interaction between neobanks, traditional banks, and exchanges. How can you make that seamless? How can you, fix your UI, UX? Do you care? Do you need to, depending on who your client base is? And I thought that was really, really interesting. But I loved, there was the last panel on crypto assets, and there was a few this morning, that were really, really interesting as well. But the one, just because it's fresh in my head, probably hearing about how the UK Parliament had, were so negative in the space, and then now, London is a real crypto hub, and how they've just kind of, no, they haven't released the regulation. No, they're not. It is really tight from a regulatory standpoint, but at least your boundaries. And I think that, they've fostered an environment which is really, really interesting, and it was done by having the conversations. And I really, really like that. And the quality of the speakers has been, fabulous, and great to hear from the guy from Brazil about how the stablecoin and digital currency adoption in Brazil is so high, and how that impacts, traditional banking. So it's really exciting that these conversations are being had, but had with real world examples. And that's what's nice.
Yeah, I think that's a big, not a big change, but it's a change that we've been seeing over the last couple of years, that we now have more of those real world examples. Yeah. And we can point to it. We have the data. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to this year for 2025, what are you excited about with all of the different things you're doing? Your emerging VC, there's that with AWIC as well. What's on the agenda? What are the goals?
I think it's, with our emerging VC, it's tech for good. How can we change the world? 81% of money goes into existing VCs, right? And existing VCs are not investing in impact or startups that are driving social or environmental change. And this has to change. Ireland is facing a $28 billion fine for not meeting its Paris Agreement targets by 2030. Let's reallocate that into the startups. The government's not going to fix it. It's going to be technology companies that are working with different infrastructure partners to really drive change themselves. So investing in that is really where it's at. And I do see blockchain, going in there. It's a fundamental. And I love that as well. Many moons ago, you might have remembered, everyone was complaining about, the energy footprint of blockchain. And here we are, talking about the energy footprint of AI, and putting all the servers into space because it's more energy efficient. And it's just like, it's a little bit of a deja vu movement. But I think as well, from perspective of AWIC, I think that, women in the space have to be supported, And it's supported with, what I love about the organization is it's not only women or females in the organization, it's all the allies. And that's the only way that change will happen. And it's, being vocal, that you're in the space, that you support the space, that no, I'm not a developer, but I understand enough to be able to have a conversation about it and to see the use cases and how it can be applied. So it's really, making sure, unmanel your panel, which is one of the famous little slogans, making sure that there's, full representation on it. But then as well, it's just having those conversations, looking at the regulatory changes, trying to influence that and build a network. People don't move and they land and they don't know where they can get the supports. And AWIC is massive community that is so supportive. So it's really about leveraging that and getting more voices heard.
Amazing. Yeah. And if hopefully when we're sitting here again next year for Blockchain Ireland Summit 2026, what do you hope has changed in the space?
So I would love to see at least 50% representation on all panels.
Note taken.
I would love to see that for sure. I'd love to see more use cases. I'd like to see expositions, how, have themes, so that it's a lot of time out of your day. It's 2 days, right? But have it set up in themes so that if I'm super interested in DeFi or finance, then I can go to the afternoon session. Or if I'm really interested in another part, in real world assets specifically, I can go to another session. And I think that, just mixing it up, and because there's so many use cases, that to focus on one area then excludes other people from attending. So I think you have to be open to the ideas and, have the split sessions so that people know when it is. And I'd love to see more networking. More breaks between the things, a little bit of conversation, sparkling it up, and, more shout outs to it's a small community. Almost everybody knows each other, but, just shout out who's new and, showcasing not just internationals on board, which are amazing panelists, but, more homegrown. So that's what I'd love to see. It's a great event.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't invest the time to be here. But we can always improve.
We can. And as you're saying, it is a small community. And I think that's, for me personally, one of the things that I loved about coming to Ireland and becoming part of the Web3 community here in blockchain is that it is so open.
Yeah.
And it's really welcoming. And people embrace the spirit of collaboration and working on something together. So I really appreciate you mentioning all of that and putting it out there in the open. Thank you so much for this chat. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much.
It's been great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.